Hello everyone, today I will recap the movie Thor, Love and Thunder. Everything began in a dry and cracked land. Gorr carried his daughter on his back. They were in a desperate situation because of hunger and disease. The only thing they could do was pray. Gorr just wished that the gods could save his daughter. However, the prayer was not answered and the girl died. In pain, Gorr hugged his daughter's body tightly, wondering where the gods were at this moment. After burying his daughter, Gorr suddenly heard a call from behind. The sand wind blew, and when he passed through, he discovered a lush green oasis in the middle of the vast desert. There was a clear lake and countless delicious fruits. He immediately rushed to eat and drink. But then, a voice rang out from above. It was the god Rappa, the god his clan had always worshipped. Gorr knelt down happily to pay his respects. People believed that if they met the god, they would receive an eternal reward. However, he did not expect Rappa to laugh at him, considering him a fool. Frustrated by Rappa's coldness and cruelty, Gorr realized that the world had no gods. They also were just humans. In a fit of rage, Gorr tore off the necklace with Rappa's image, making Rappa angry and rushing to strangle him. Suddenly, Gorr heard a whisper from the stone. If you want revenge, kill all the gods. From the ground, a sword flew up. Gorr grabbed it and killed the first god, Rappa. From that moment, Gorr, the unfortunate man, became a god killer, vowing to destroy all the gods. Now, let's return to the story of the thunder god Thor. He was born and raised with the mission of fighting for justice. In love, Thor can love many people at the same time without hurting anyone. However, when he falls in love with a woman on Earth, his life becomes more difficult. He has to endure great losses. His parents, younger brother and best friend are all gone, and he has to face endless wars. The climax of the pain is when he loses his love. To stop suffering, Thor decides to create a thick layer of fat to protect his heart. Despite many losses, Thor still does not stop fighting. He chooses to cooperate with Guardians of the Galaxy to protect the planets. Before joining the battle, the god of thunder Thor needs to practice to have a perfect body with 6 packs. Although he has a charming appearance, his soul is still quite weak. Sometimes, Thor still has moments when he sits alone in a daze while everyone is fighting. One day, he decided to close his heart, seek meditation and spend time contemplating and thinking about life. Only when someone came to ask for his help in the battle, did Thor quickly ride his axe out of the mountain to join in. In the midst of the fierce battle, Thor appeared as a sage and said that this was the ideal place to meditate. Everyone angrily objected, saying that the enemy must be defeated first. At this time, the planet's king said that their guardian god had just been killed and the enemy was attacking the temple. After making a philosophical speech, Thor took off his cloak and threw it straight at the king's face. Immediately after, the thunder god Thor summoned his powerful lightning power. The monsters saw this and immediately controlled their warships to attack. Thor swung his axe, dodged the enemy's bullets, and then cut down those who rushed at him. With only his bare hands, he threw a motorcycle into the enemy. Whoever rushed in would surely be defeated. A group of ferocious combat vehicles rushed forward, but were attacked by Thor with an axe, causing heavy damage. 2 more chariots continued to advance towards him, but he was able to block them and kick them away. After completely destroying the monsters and reclaiming the temple, Thor celebrated his victory with the support of his teammates. Fortunately, there were no casualties, but the temple was destroyed. In another development, Jane Foster, Thor's ex-lover, has just been diagnosed with terminal cancer. In her despair, she receives support from a professor who studies her illness. Feeling depressed, Jane suddenly has a strange feeling. She opens her book again and sees the Hammer Mjolnir. Remembering New Asgard, she immediately decides to visit this place, which is currently ruled by Valkyrie. Everyone watches a play about the end of Asgard together, and she also sees an image of the goddess Hela, 10 times fatter than the original version. The Hammer Mjolnir, which was broken, is placed in a glass case as an exhibit. But when everyone leaves, leaving only Jane, the broken pieces of the Hammer Mjolnir suddenly vibrate and fly up, as if there is some connection between them and her. On this side, the king is given Thor 2 giant goats. Suddenly, an emergency call came informing them that the Gorr had appeared, along with a plea for help from Thor's childhood friend Sif. Thor immediately refused to join the Guardians to save Sif. He then summoned his hammer. He and his friend, Krog, were quickly transported to a cold planet. There, he found Sif and learned that she had lost an arm fighting Gorr. Sif tells him that there was recently a man named Gorr who hunted and killed gods. If he was not stopped soon, Asgard would be in danger. That same night, in New Asgard, while everyone was sleeping, Gorr appeared. He stabbed his sword into the ground, creating a black smoke, and immediately, terrifying monsters appeared, flooded into the city. At this moment, light from the sky shone down. Valkyrie appeared on a flying horse. Beside her, there was also Thor. Everyone immediately rushed to fight the monsters. During the fight, Thor suddenly saw a familiar light. He stopped fighting and focused on searching because he felt that it was his hammer Mjolnir. Thor happily summoned Mjolnir, and it flew through the monster and stopped in front of him. When he reached out to receive it, the hammer refused and returned to its new owner. Thor then tried to summon Mjolnir again, but the hammer scattered into many small pieces to destroy the monster before returning to her. Annoyed that someone was impersonating him, Thor put on his full armor to prepare for battle. However, when new owner of Mjolnir's took off mask, Thor realized that it was Jane, his lover from years ago. The love story between Jane and Thor began with happy moments. They spent time together, played and dated like any other couple. Because he loved Jane, Thor asked Mjolnir to protect her. However, they eventually had to part ways regretfully, because Thor had to fulfill great responsibilities. Before leaving, Jane left a letter and disappeared. Seeing each other again in such a situation, Thor's heart suddenly sank. Suddenly, he saw Gorr in white appear. When Thor approached, the person disappeared again. In the blink of an eye, Gorr appeared from behind Thor and attacked, sent him flying away. However, Thor was not someone who could be defeated easily. When he stood up, Gorr pressed him against the wall again. Gorr raised his sword and wanted to kill him. Thor felt a little worried when he saw that the sword had the power to kill gods. When Gorr tried to take Thor's axe, Thor quickly choked him and threw him away. Seeing that the situation became tense, Gorr disappeared. But that was just a ploy to attract attention. Gorr had kidnapped all the children in Asgard, and Thor and Jane immediately chased after him, but he once again escaped. Finally, Thor and Jane returned and talked about old memories. The next morning, everyone gathered at the government agency. Thor saw Jane confidently holding her hammer Mjolnir, but he felt uncomfortable and tried to summon his own hammer. Instead of a hammer, a huge axe suddenly appeared. Inside, people became chaotic because of the loss of their children and began to argue. Thor was forced to reconcile and promised to bring the children back safely. He raised the axe and stabbed it through the ceiling. Everyone was hopeful, until they looked out the window and saw Thor falling over and damaging public property. Valkyrie told the people to go outside so they could hold an internal meeting. During the meeting, an image of the young boy Astrid appeared, son of Heimdall, the gatekeeper god. Astrid had the same powers as his father, but did not know how to use them. Thor taught him by telling him to hold out his hand and concentrate, and immediately, Thor's image appeared before the children's eyes, even though it was just an illusion. Thor comforted them, telling them not to worry. After observing the surroundings, Thor realized that this was the dark world, where Gorr became the most powerful. To save the children, Thor's group needed to form an army. They decided to find the most powerful gods in the universe. Thor summoned his axe to open the Bifrost Bridge, but no one dared to go with him. Therefore, they chose Jane's solution. They used the cruise ship Aga, and tied 2 giant goats to pull the ship. Thor used the axe Stormbreaker to generate energy for the ship. Thor then revealed to Jane that he was on a journey to find himself, wanting to understand who he was. Jane also shared that Mjolnir had unexpectedly chosen her as its master. However, Jane is not as strong as she looks. As soon as she puts down the hammer, her weak health will appear. During those times, she remembers her mother's words, "Never stop fighting." When Jane takes the hammer outside, she meets Valkyrie. Valkyrie is bored with her life as a king, so she wants to join the fight and offers to be friends with Jane. After Thor stands on the ship and said he would bring the children back safely, his group is led by 2 goats to the Omnipotence Peak, the abode of the gods. It is majestic and magnificent, with the golden color of wealth and luxury covering everywhere. Meanwhile, in the dark world, Astrid is telling her friends about Thor's achievements. Suddenly, Gorr appears and easily twists the head of a monster, scaring the children pale. On this side, Thor's group has to disguise themselves to enter the castle of the gods. In the middle of the castle, a large cloud appeared, a brilliant golden light shone, and Zeus appeared on the throne with a lightning bolt in his hand. Thor was very excited, until he discovered that this serious meeting was only to discuss where the gods would hold a party this year. So, they felt disappointed and began to discuss, but were discovered by Zeus. Thor, with all due respect, stepped up to the podium to warn about the god killer, Gorr, and his plan to borrow soldiers. However, Zeus had become so cruel that he no longer cared about the life and death of his fellow men. He tied Thor's hands and stripped him of his clothes, leaving everyone stunned. Zeus recognized Thor as the god of thunder and mocked him that the sound of thunder was just an echo. Then Zeus whispered to Thor that Gorr possessed the sword of the gods, so he could not fight back. It was best to stay here and enjoy a safe life. Thor had no choice but to ask to borrow a weapon, but Zeus refused to help. Not only did he not help, he also intended to kill Thor to silence him. Immediately, Jane defeated an enemy. Then Valkyrie and Korg joined in. Each of them easily destroyed about 10 enemies. Zeus, enraged, summoned lightning and killed Korg, shattering him into pieces. Taking this opportunity, Zeus aimed straight at Thor. However, Thor took the lightning and shot it straight at Zeus, scaring everyone around. Suddenly, a noise came from the pile of rocks. It turned out that Korg was still alive, with part of his face. Valkyrie used her hair to hold Korg back and continue fighting. Korg whistled for a boat, and 2 goats rushed into the castle. Valkyrie jumped onto the throne to retrieve the lightning bolt. And then, their group quickly used the ship to fly away. Thor then used his magic eye to meet the children. However, Valkyrie was very worried because their number was only 3, while Thor still seemed foolish. Thor insisted that he was completely normal. That evening, Thor and Jane had a light conversation. Thor showed Jane interesting things about the galaxy, and expressed his desire to rekindle their love. However, Jane revealed that she had cancer, and was now living off the supernatural power of the Vikings. Thor comforted her, saying that Mjolnir had chosen her because she was worthy. Finally, after many years apart, the two returned to each other and shared a kiss. While Korg was talking to Valkyrie, the group arrived at Gorr's dark world. Here, everything is just black and white, and the colors on their bodies seem to disappear. The 2 goats once again crashed into the cliff so that the boat can be landed. When they reached the cage, they found that the children were no longer there. They saw a hut and decided to split up to search. During her exploration, Jane discovered an ancient painting. The painting states that the axe Stormbreaker is the key to achieving eternity. Whoever finds the Stormbreaker axe will be able to open the portal to eternity. When she understood Gorr's purpose, Jane immediately threw the axe Stormbreaker away and informed Valkyrie. They realized that they had fallen into a dangerous situation and immediately prepared to fight. In the thick darkness, Gorr slowly appeared. The group rushed forward but were bound by the dark magic from the sword. Gorr forced Thor to summon the Stormbreaker axe. Thor begged the gods for help, but to no avail. Gorr tried to convince Thor to become his ally, saying that the gods did not really exist. He also believed that Jane was being used by the gods. In a fit of rage, Gorr told Thor about his past, and threatened to kill Jane if Thor did not summon Stormbreaker. Thor had no choice but to summon Stormbreaker. The lightning drove away the dark vines, allowing Gorr to escape and summon an army of monsters. Valkyrie held the monsters back so Thor could confront Gorr. The battle was quick. The light from the axe tore through the night. After a few blows, Thor pushed Gorr back, while Jane, with each jump, took down a monster. Outside, the monsters were toppling the ship, but the giant goats were smart. One fled, holding Korg, while the other rushed into battle. On this side, Valkyrie gathered power from the lightning, while Jane used her hammer to support. They took turns attacking Gorr. Valkyrie stabbed the lightning into Gorr's back, but unexpectedly, he appeared behind her and attacked her. Jane immediately came to Valkyrie's aid. Thor then uses the Bifrost flying bridge to bring everyone back, but unfortunately, Gorr had already stolen the Stormbreaker axe. As Jane leaves the hammer Mjolnir, she immediately collapsed. Thor worriedly took her to the hospital, and found out that Jane's condition was very serious, with no hope of recovery. Thor believed that the power of the hammer had damaged Jane's health, so he did not want her to continue fighting with Gorr. Although Jane tried to convince Thor, but he said that he loved her and wanted her to live, so that they could both have a chance to start over. In the end, it was love that made Jane change her mind. Valkyrie then gave Thor the lightning bolt, and he uses it to go to the dark world of Gorr and fight him. Now, the children were watching the rocks form into a palace. Gorr used the power of darkness to hold the axe on the rock. The axe Stormbreaker emitted a powerful light, causing the ground to shake violently. A giant rock fell on the place where the children were hiding. Fortunately, Thor caught it in time and protected all the children behind him. As Gorr began to summon monsters, Thor realized that he could not fight and protect the children at the same time. Instead, he taught them how to defend themselves. Thor told them to find everything they could use, bring it, and line up, holding up what they had chosen. Thor grants temporary power to the children's all, causing eyes and objects in their hands to glow. The team then charged into battle with the monsters. Astrid is the most talented. The boy has defeated many monsters. Even a girl in a pink dress could easily cut the monster in half. Another child even used a stuffed rabbit to shoot the monster. Besides, Thor also joined the fierce battle. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Jane often dreamed of their battle, and decided to pick up her hammer Mjolnir to join in. Not long after, Thor was defeated by Gorr. He was about to stab Thor with his sword. However, Thor tried to block it with his hand. At that moment, Jane appeared on Valkyrie's flying horse like a god. Thor and Jane both rushed to attack Gorr. However, Thor was not happy about that, because Jane's participation in the battle could worsen her illness and threaten her life. However, before the eyes the two decided to join forces to fight Gorr. Thor tried to stop the Stormbreaker axe from opening Gate of Eternity, but it was held by the darkness and pushed him away. Meanwhile, Jane and Gorr are both trying their best to fight each other. Jane slammed her hammer on the ground, sending Gorr flying, then she flew up to strike Gorr, but he caught them in time, causing she and Thor of them to be thrown away. Thor successfully stopped the gate from opening, quickly threw the axe to Astrid, who used it to open the Bifrost Bridge to bring everyone home. Thor quickly came to Jane's aid. By this time, Thor had become more proficient in controlling lightning, but Gorr's sword was still very powerful. The two were in a fierce battle. Seeing this, Jane threw her hammer to destroy Gorr's sword. However, Gorr's sword kept reassembling. Finally, Jane decided to use all her strength to deliver a powerful blow, which turned Gorr was seriously injured. It seemed like it was over, but unexpectedly the gate to eternity opened. Gorr knelt before the altar of eternity. Meanwhile, Jane was exhausted and fell to the ground. Thor accepted defeat and wanted to spend his last moments with Jane. Thor told Gorr that what he really wanted was to revive his daughter, not kill the gods. The image of Gorr's daughter, Love, appeared in his mind, and he seemed to realize his mistake. Gorr wished that he could sacrifice his life to save Love. Then, Love was instantly revived, and the father and daughter embraced each other tightly. On this side, Jane was dying. She and Thor said their last words to each other, and then she turned into gold dust in his hands. Gorr also felt his last breath due to the side effects of the sword of the gods. Before leaving, he asked Thor to take care of his daughter, Love. The children of Asgard were returned to reunite with their families. The people here made statues of Jane to remember what she had done. To prevent a similar incident from happening, Valkyrie opened the class to teach the children martial arts. Korg also regained his toned body, and later dated another guy. The god of thunder Thor unexpectedly became Love's foster father, sometimes having to avoid her tricks. He returned with the hammer Mjolnir, which Love decorated with colorful colors. The axe Stormbreaker was left for Love. The father and son traveled together across planets to carry out missions, destroy monsters, and becoming famous as the Love and Thunder couple.